In this section, we're going to talk a little bit about passwords and how to make them secure. When dealing with WordPress or any platform security, passwords play a huge part. And it seems like we do everything online. We manage finances, we socialize, we do school and take classes. In every single one of these websites that we visit to do any of these things, we need to create a user account, which usually has a username or your email address along with a password. And many people don't understand what a secure password actually is. So we're going to go through some rules and suggestions on how to make secure passwords. So here we have the basic rules that you'll see these show up everywhere. Many times you'll see these on registration forms where the site will actually try to suggest that you use these rules when creating your password. So we want to make it at least 8 characters. Hackers use different types of tools like brute force, and 8 is the number that makes it it severely decreases your chances of getting hacked in that way. We also want to use at least one uppercase letter and at least one lowercase letter, at least one number, and at least one symbol character. And the symbol in many times will be either a hashtag or an @ sign, an exclamation mark, whatever. You should just definitely add a symbol somewhere in there. I like to include the symbol at the end, but it doesn't really matter where. Do not use the same password. This is probably the most common mistake that people make. If you have 200 accounts at 200 different sites, and a hacker is able to get into at least one of those sites, then they're going to have your entire online identity in their hands, where they can change the passwords and lock you out of all your accounts. So this is the biggest no-no in having a secure password. And of course, I know that it can be difficult to remember these 200 account passwords, but there are ways that you can manage your passwords, like different types of password manager software, which we'll look at a little later. Or even if your computer is in a safe place, maybe at your home, then maybe have some kind of notebook or something, or maybe even an iPad app or something to store your passwords. But anything is better than using the same password. Okay, so I would definitely suggest that you use a simple but secure algorithm. This type of algorithm is commonly used basically taking the first initial of a phrase. So here's an example. If you live at 323 Broadway Street in Boston, Mass., then you could use something like this. You could use the 323 and then the first letter of each word, capitalizing random words or whatever, and then adding on a symbol. So that's a pretty secure password right there. If you want to go a step further and you don't want to use something that's common like an address, you could use a certain phrase, like, let's say, I have a cat named Spot that's 4. So you could use something like this, which is a little more secure. People aren't going to get this password if they know you have a cat named Spot. They're not going to put that together. So that's really, if they even know you have a cat named Spot, which most hackers don't. So another tip is not to use real words or dictionary words. Many of these tools that the hackers use, like brute force attack, they'll just really quickly test different strings, different words together, and they'll try to get in that way. But if your password doesn't have any words, then that pretty much eliminates that type of attack. Let's see what else we got here. Password generators. If you want an extremely secure password, then you could use a password generator. The only thing to question here is really the app itself that's generating the passwords. Are they really random? Are they saved in a database where people can get to them? Things like that. Some reputable generators that I've used are strongpasswordgenerator.com. The Norton actually has their own password generator, and then random.org has a nice generator as well. And most of these will allow you to generate a password up to 100 characters. So that's that's a little overboard, but that's the type of security you can get when it comes to passwords. Password managers. There's different opinions on these types of applications. The risk is if someone can gain access to your computer, it's not hard at all to get these passwords. And there's a couple different types. You probably already know that browsers like Chrome and Firefox, they actually come with a password saver. If you've ever seen that little pop-up that says, do you want to save this password? You could use that. If you wanted to use something a little more in-depth, you could use a third-party application. And there's a couple different kinds. There's third-party local applications like KeePass, which are really secure because it's all stored locally on your computer, but it's less convenient because you can only use it on a computer where that's installed. Something cloud-based like LastPass is less secure but more convenient. So this is actually hosted on an encrypted server that you can access from virtually anywhere with an internet connection. And that's what I use. I use LastPass. I've done research on it, and I feel that it's secure enough for me. If you're a government agent or something, then you might not want to use that. And then to wrap this up, I just want to take a look at some of the world's dumbest passwords that people still use to this day. The dumbest being password, 123456, ABC 123, 123, string of ones, the QWERTY, using your name or your kid's names or your pet name or your phone number, birth date, any kind of public information you don't want to use unless you're using some kind of algorithm like we talked about. Welcome is still a pretty popular dumb password, and let me in. Alright, so those are perfect examples of what you don't want to do, what you don't want to use. So that's it for secure passwords. There's not much more that we can talk about on that subject. So next we'll start to move towards WordPress, and we'll talk about installing it and using a secure installation and secure server.